All right, this is Fain with Sanctuary Bath, and what we're doing today is a vinyl plank installation. Now, vinyl plank and laminate flooring, they're different, but the snap together component of vinyl plank and laminate flooring, they're basically the same. So all of the tips, tricks, tactics, and techniques that I'll share with you today can transfer to laminate flooring as well. And so we're just getting started here. And as you can see over here, what I needed to do, there was a curb that came up about 1/4 of an inch higher than the regular floor. That happens sometimes with concrete floors. So I used a patching compound. What I used was a rapid set mortar. It's a lot cheaper than standard patching compound, and it does the job great, and it dries quickly. And so I used rapid set mortar. You can get that at, say, Home Depot. It's called Speed Set, if you have the same kind of situation.
How'd you go about applying that there? Because this looks real smooth here.
We'll put out a video that'll show you exactly how to get a smooth surface. I'll make it look really easy, but I've been doing this for 38 years, so. All right, so we've got our foundation ready, and what we're going to do here is I'm going to show you how to get set up and get your first several rows down, because the way most people do it is not the best way to do it. They'll do one row at a time. What we're going to do is we're going to do several rows at a time. That'll create a more solid foundation. And by solid foundation, I mean straight. It'll be much straighter. And the straighter the first several rows are, when you're doing a laminate or vinyl plank flooring installation, the less problems you're going to have with things going out of square further on down the road. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to lay down our padding. This is a padding that creates moisture, creates a moisture barrier. Absolutely essential for laminate flooring. They'll say that you don't need to with vinyl plank, because vinyl plank is solid vinyl and it's waterproof, but we're going to do it anyways because it's just the safe way to go. So there's two sections here. One is a little flap here, and then the other is basically a peel and stick sticky. So you want to put the peel and stick element to the wall.
And then, now, I guess a question for you, because I was kind of curious, why are we rolling this way as opposed to lengthwise back and forth?
In this situation, okay, that's a good question. In this situation, the homeowner wants all of the flooring to run parallel. So they don't want the floor running one way in one part of the room and then a 90-degree angle in another part of the room. So the best way to run this plank upstairs, which we're going to show you when we get to that point, is running this way. The hall runs this way, the steps run this way, and the homeowner wants it to be to run the same way throughout the whole house. So generally, if all we were doing was this room, you can see it's longer than it is wide, we'd probably run it this way, but we're going to do what the homeowner wants, and we're going to run it this way, which works really well because you got the steps over here, and it's going to run the same way as the steps and the upstairs, which makes it a beautiful, symmetrical, very, very clean installation. And so that's why we're doing it in this way. A second reason is the ideal is to go off of an exterior wall. This is the exterior wall, so it's the best place to start doing this installation on this project. So you get the padding rolled out, and then obviously you're going to want some sort of utility knife. I'll show you all the tools that we'll be needing as we go. Just give that a cut. And then we're set. And what I do, just so I'm not cussing later, is I'll put a plank over here just to keep this from rolling up on me, because that'll just roll up on you and get in your way. So I've eliminated that problem. So the first thing we're gonna do, remember, we're gonna work I'm gonna start not one row, I'm gonna do 3 rows at once so that everything is nice and straight. And so if you take a look at this, with the laminate plank, you've got a groove side, and then you've got, yeah, can you see the groove?
Yeah, I got it.
All right. And then you've got a tongue side. That's the tongue side. And then you also have a groove side on one end and a tongue side on one end. All right. So what you want to do with
Just to clarify the terminology, the groove side is on the bottom, tongue side is on the top.
Wait, I'm not following you there.
You said groove side bottom right here.
Yeah, the groove kind of goes into the plank here, and the tongue sticks out of the plank. Okay. Now it's kind of hard to tell the difference because you have a protrusion. The bottom of the groove sticks out, and so does the tongue. But you'll have to just take a quick look, make sure that the tongue side is facing the wall that you're starting on, and the tongue side is facing the wall that you're starting on. Otherwise, you'll be working backwards. It'll make it a lot harder. So you want tongue to wall, tongue to wall. And what we're going to do is we're going to start away from the wall. Okay, and there's a reason that we'll do that, and I'll show you why in a bit. And then you want about a 1/4 of an inch gap. In this case, it actually slides under, but you want at least the width of the material, and I'd say a 1/4 inch. Make sure you have a 1/4 inch gap here and here. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this next piece and we're gonna flip it around so it's groove to groove. Okay, and the reason we're doing that is it'll just make marking it easier. So I've flipped these around. So this is the tongue. That's a groove, that's a groove, that's a groove. And so basically what I'm doing is I'm gonna stair step these. So I'm gonna make a mark there. That's my cut. Make a mark here. That's my cut. Make a mark here. That's my cut.
Now,
so
there's no measuring involved here. What's your deal here?
Yeah, there's no reason to measure because we're going to install this randomly. It's not going to be uniform. It's going to each plank is going to be installed randomly. And so when I make this cut, this is the piece that will go right here. And so that's why I worked backwards, so I could flip this around, and I'll show you exactly what I mean when I get out there. And then these pieces, this piece, this piece, this piece, those can all be used at the end. Okay, these are end pieces, these are starter pieces. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut all 4 of these at once. And if you're cutting 4 at once, you're running in and out of the house much less, and so it's going to save you a lot of time. So, all right, so I've got my saw set up, right? You don't need this nice of a saw. A standard chop saw will work just fine, but we've got a little bit better one. So these are where my cuts are, and so I'm just going to go ahead and cut those right on that. All right, so one of these piles is starter pieces, the other pile is end pieces. All right, so I've got my end pieces, which are the tongue, okay? The tongue is going to be the end piece. So I'm putting all my end pieces over here. And so all of the grooves are going to be my starter pieces over here. And so the reason I marked these backwards was so that when I cut it,
To rotate around.
yep, I rotate it around so the cut end is against the wall, and I've got a full plank here, all right? So obviously with a laminate or vinyl plank flooring, the installation method is you put the tongue into the groove and lift it up a little bit, and then just drop it down. So that's...
Now, do people often break those things if they force it, or what kind of happens?
Yeah, what will end up happening is people use a tapping block. And there are times when you need to use a tapping block, but using a tapping block, it's called a tapping block. It's called a tapping block for a reason. It's not called a pound that sucker in block. It's called a tapping block because you just lightly tap on it. And most of the time I don't need to use a tapping block, but you'll see those times where I do need to. So now I'm getting my second piece on here. Snaps together just like that, very simple. Hopefully yours snaps together this easily. So I've got my starter, my first 4 rows, and oftentimes, because I've got enough room to put another plank, I'll do that. I work on an entire section of rows that is as wide as the underlayment every time, instead of just doing 1 row at a time. So now that we've done that, I'm going to come over here, and what I kind of do is lift the center and then get that tongue into the groove. And so that's done. And you'll notice I'm not working against the wall. I'm doing that very specifically because what I want to do is not try to conform to the wall. If that wall is out of square or curved, and I'm trying to, you know, get a 1/4 inch all the way along that wall, it's not, my first 4 rows aren't going to be straight. So
This is kind of like a retaining wall in the sense where the errors get worse as you go along.
yes, yeah, you get it this first several rows wrong, you're going to be, I don't know, maybe you don't swear, but if you do, you're going to be swearing at the end of this. And so now get a close up here.
Let me get a good shot of that here.
Yep.
You want to reseat that there, just like...
Yeah, so right now I've just got the tongue setting right on top of the lower part of the groove here, okay? This is going to be the most challenging piece right here, this second piece. From here on out, it gets pretty easy, but this second piece is the most challenging because you got to tuck the tongue into the groove here and the tongue into the groove here. And so you start with the end, get that in there, lift it, drop it down, all right? And now you've got to get this tongue into here, which can be a little tricky, and I'll probably...
Get that shot from this thing
Yep.
here.
I'll probably make it look really easy, so if you don't do it as easily, don't get frustrated, just keep working on it. So first thing you do is just kind of wiggle the end in, so that just kind of tapped in there. And then I'll put my knee padded knee, where knee pads, this can be rough on your knees, right on the seam here, all right? And then I'll just kind of wiggle this, just kind of lift and wiggle till that snaps in. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard. All right, I may need to do it a little bit differently. boy. Yep, it's not going in easily. So,
So I put it back in that corner where it's jammed up.
yeah, I'm not sure, but, and it's only going to be this hard on this first one. There it goes. So, yep, you probably heard it snap. And then just kind of wiggle this in.
Now why is it that hard just on that one? It seems like it'd be every one of these corners where it's gonna
Well, once you have your 3 rows or your 4 rows pressed up against the wall and shims put in there, then you're not worried about pushing back. Yeah. So now this one will be a lot easier because I've got that's a pretty solid foundation there. So again, I'm gonna tuck my quarter in, and now I can get my whole body on this section. So I snap in the end right there, and then just kind of wiggle this, and it just snapped right in there. Did you hear that?
Yep.
Boom. And then do your next one. Kind of get that one started, and then you've just got your knees forcing this piece down, and then it just snaps right in there. And then you just follow suit. And so we'll go ahead and do that one more time so you can see it.
Yeah, that's enough room for one more.
Yep, one more plank.
This over here.
All right, so this is perfect. So now you want to just make sure that you got your 1/4 inch over here. If you kind of zoom in on that, you've got approximately a 1/4 inch away from the wall. You want to make sure you've got that gap.
Yeah, it's a little bit less than a 1/4 inch at the sheetrock height, but we're talking about under the sheetrock height.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be perfectly straight if you've got a gap underneath the wall like we do. If you don't, then you need to make sure you've got that at about a 1/4 inch, and you can
That's
use.
also for thermal expansion too, right?
Yeah, it requires expansion and contraction because it's just a floating floor. And so if you don't have that gap, certain times, like during the summer, the heat will come in and expand it, and then you end up buckling your floor. And you don't want that because that just looks really bad. Doesn't feel good either when you're walking across it. All right, so let me show you the best way to do this cutting. All right? So I'm going to run my tape measure to the wall. All right? Now if you look here, go ahead and zoom in here. Basically what we've got is 58 1/8. All right, that's to the wall. So since I need a 1/4 inch gap, I'm gonna cut mine at 57 7/8, right? And you wanna make sure that the tongue side is where you're measuring from. So just drop it on top of the tongue. Drop your tape on top of the tongue, not against the tongue, but up against the vinyl
You're
here.
saying like a root thing.
Yeah.
Let me get real zoomed in here so you can actually see.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't matter. If you've got 1/2 inch base that you're putting it on there, you could have a 3/8 inch gap there. It wouldn't make a big deal.
You're saying that it's just resting right on top.
Right on top of there, yep. Because you'll be able to get perfect cuts this way. And so we're gonna cut the first piece at 57 7/8, right? All right, so 57 7/8. Because the current gap is 58 1/8. So that gives us our 1/4 inch. Let's go ahead and cut
Okay,
this.
hold on. Let's clarify a little bit here because the whole plank fits there, right? Does that even need to be cut?
Yeah, because the whole plank doesn't fit
Oh,
there.
it doesn't fit there. Okay.
Yeah, see, it
So I
overlaps.
just thought it did. Okay.
Yeah, it overlaps, and I'm showing you the measuring method instead of you just tucking it up there and then kind of marking it right here. You're not going to get a perfect measure. And like I said, if you got 1/2 inch base, if your base is a 1/2 inch thick, You could have a 1/4 inch to almost a 1/2 inch gap over there. It wouldn't really matter. But if you're using a base that's only about 5/16, which is 1/16 over a 1/4 inch, you got to be really precise.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we're doing the really precise method. So I've got my mark here. We're going to go ahead and cut this. So you can see where I marked it. I marked it in a space that would be directly underneath the blade, so I could see that blade's going to drop right on that cut, if you can see that.
Yep.
So I'll literally eliminate that mark with my cut. There, see, zoom in on this. See, the mark's gone because I dropped that blade exactly. I measured from the tongue and I cut off the groove.
Yep.
And so now we're going to go ahead and install this piece just like we did before. So that's dropped in right where it needs to be. And then,
Look at that beauty right there, just a little bit of gapping.
yeah, what do you got there? About 1/4 inch. And if you use this method, you can nail that at exactly 1/4 inch every time. If you got thin base, you're going to want to do that. So, and then this will be the next hardest piece, just because. Yeah. Now try not to get frustrated at this. Like I said, this is going to be the hardest part.
Weight knee on that right there.
Let's see. There it goes. Yeah, it was.
I heard it make the pop.
Yeah, made the pop there. But right here, now you probably can't see it, but it's not quite as tucked as it could be. And so I'm going to go ahead and use the tapping block here just to make it easier. So I got my...
The tapping block. What's
Yep.
the tapping block? Chunk of plastic?
Just a chunk of plastic, right? And so the reason I'm using this is because it's just not all the way clicked here. I don't know if you can see right here, but it's just, you know, it's hanging past this board just a touch. Yep, and for me to get in there would be almost impossible. And so with my tapping block, I've got this little teeny groove edge here, and then a thicker one here. This little teeny groove edge is going to drop right onto the, right on, so you're butt up again. You don't want it grabbing
Not grabbing
the groove.
yeah.
You want it grabbing the laminate, and then all I'm gonna do is put my knee here and give that a few taps. And that's about it. So I've pulled that in.
Real close.
Yep, okay, so that's what I needed to do. One of those rare occasions that I need a tapping block, and then these will go really easy, just like they did before.
Chunk of plastic.
Yeah, so if it just isn't going, take a quick look, make sure you don't have,
Oh, I think I saw you. You can pull that little, maybe not there.
yeah, just make sure you don't have something.
You could have a manufacturing defect too, right? I mean,
Yeah, it could be a manufacturing defect. It could just be just a little bitty piece of plastic that's in there from the manufacturing.
or some dirt from cutting even.
Yep, oops, I forgot to tuck this. Pop that in. I swear I'm seeing something right here. I don't know what that is, but
Looks like there's a little lip on there.
there's something that's... Oh well, I can't see it when I pull that off. All right, let's give this one more try. All right, I'm gonna use the tapping block again. All right, so in this instance, you're on your, what I call the foundation.
Locked in.
Yep, and then you lift it up a little bit and put your knee on here. just to keep this edge down, and then just tap it like this. There it goes. And you'll see it drop in if you're taking a quick look. So,
Looks pretty smooth now.
yeah. And, you know, you might have a vinyl plank or a laminate that's just harder to install than some others. I've installed some that were really hard, and then others that were incredibly easy.
Now, is that something that's like, you know, are generally more expensive ones cost per square foot better, or is it?
Generally speaking, yeah. If you go with a real cheap one, yeah, this stuff doesn't really want to go in very well. So I'm gonna follow my method here. Got it lifted, and I'm just tapping. There. We really, did you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you can see it, you know, just keep an eye, and that's it. And then, for cutting these, we're gonna do all three at once. All right? So, I'm gonna take my first piece, measure to the wall. I've got 12 and an eighth. So I'm gonna cut it at 11 and 7/8. I'm measuring from the tongue. 11 and 7/8. All right, then I'll take my next piece. I marked one board. I marked one board twice. 43 1/4. That's something you won't see on this whole house. They'll cut that out.
Everybody's perfect, right?
We're
We're the real deal.
we are the real deal, raw and uncensored.
One take, baby.
Yep. All right, so you're gonna see how beautifully these all fit. So I've got my starter pieces, which are the end with the groove, and these are all going to start my next 3 rows. All right, so got the groove, the tongue in the groove. And then I'm just gonna tap this until it goes in. Didn't quite make it. All right, it's in there. Make sure you haven't damaged the edge. Just give it a feel. Tuck my tongue in the groove. And this stuff is gonna be like this throughout the whole install, I think.
Fight you.
Yeah,
Vinyl.
I always win though. I always win. I haven't lost once.
All right, then after this, so you're just gonna keep repeating this process
Yep,
up until we get to this doorway.
exactly. Push this over.
Now, what about that sticky set? Did you ever pull and peel that down?
I didn't need to. That's for when you connect two pieces together.
Okay.
So, what do we got here? I'm pushing this over,
I think we got the
close to the wall.
little bit of foam coming up.
Yep, and that's no problem. I'll just cut that out. And so now you can see how, look at this. Look at this right here.
Oh, we got a little gap.
Yep, a little bit of a gap there.
Look at that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna get that over. I'm gonna tap that. Again, I'm not sure how that happened, but gotta be looking out for that sort of thing because it does happen.
Don't be afraid to undo it if you need to.
Yep. Sometimes you just gotta work backwards to go forwards. There we go. Now, that's the way it's supposed to work. We're gonna put a 1/4 inch here, a 1/4 inch shim here, and then one in the center and one on the end. And I'm gonna go grab those really quick. Are we still recording?
Yeah, we're still running.
All I'm using is the material itself. So, one in there. I'm gonna need to move
So
this.
You get a little shot there.
Okay. Yep, one in there. So now I'm tied up against there.
That's gonna want to pull back though because of the sheetrock being slightly painful out, right?
Yeah, let me cut this foam out of here. So there's that. Then I'm gonna go to this end. Cut the foam out of there. There's that. And then so if you notice here,
Yeah,
the gap is bigger.
wall bows out a little bit there.
Yeah, so the wall kind of bows in there, and that's why I didn't want to run the whole thing, because this is a little bit small, but that's okay. You don't actually need that center one if it's going to be if the gap is bigger there in the center, as long as your base covers this.
So now what would you do in the situation if someone had real thin baseboard, but the wall bows out like this?
Yeah. So there's a couple things. One is if it's wider here than it is on the ends, one of the things you can actually do is kind of cut out the bottom of the sheetrock.
Shove it up against it.
Yep, you cut the sheetrock off.
You're talking about on the edges.
Yep, on that end and that end. And you cut the bottom of the sheetrock. You'll have to pull the thing out.
Clean it up.
Yep, clean it up, and then you can slide it in there. And on the ends, it's going to go up underneath there, so it's the right distance here. The second thing you can do is, let me show you. And this might be easier for most people. You can pull this out. It is grabbing the foam, unfortunately. You could pull this out like this. And then measure, so I got 4 3/4 there, and 4 3/4 there, and then you can actually backfill this piece. So you take a full plank here, or a half a plank, so you're not, so you're at a different area than either of these end joints, and then you just measure one side and measure the other, just like we're gonna have to do when we get to the end. You're gonna have to cut that piece, and so you could actually cut this to conform to that wall. So it might be 4 3/4 here, and then 5 here, and 4 3/4, but you can actually navigate that backfill piece to contour to the wall. Fortunately for us,
Easy peasy.
yeah, it's going to be a little easier because I think the homeowner putting in new base here?
Yeah, there's new base going in here.
Yep, so we'll just make sure it's 1/2 inch.
Locked in.
Yeah, so let me just say this. The way I've done this here is a little bit harder to do than just starting right off the wall. If you've got a perfectly straight wall, that might be the way to go, but I've very rarely seen perfectly straight walls. So this is a way that you can get a perfectly straight first set of rows. so that your problems don't end up further down the job. Little bit more time consuming to do it this way, but it's going to pay out in the long run. So that's why we do it this way. And now we're set. We've got a solid foundation and we can fly through this. And on the next video, I'll show you how quickly that works now that we've got our foundation set.